everyone, and welcome to today's workshop on Sturts Steps. We've got about 50 registered today. We currently have around 18 that have joined us, so I know everyone's pushed for time, and we are recording this today, so we will get started, and anyone can catch up what they missed when we publicise the recording. So thank you for joining us. Now let me just mute a few of you here so we don't get the background sound, and thank you for leaving your camera off for the moment just to make sure everyone has access to this recording as it goes. The bandwidth does vary across the state, and by minimising that we can keep our videos off and mute ourselves until we wish to speak. If you're not familiar with Zoom, welcome to my office, which has been my office for the past 6 months or so, and please have a look at the chat feature, which is a little box there you'll see that says chat. You are more than welcome to type anything you wish to the attendees or myself in that box. Introduce yourself, where you're from, because this is a workshop, so it is interactive and you can ask questions, and certainly we encourage everyone to participate. The other option you have on your screen is to see the participants. So you can click on participants and actually see who's attending today. And you can change also what you're seeing by a few little options there. So if I can just get a bit of feedback in the chat, can everyone hear and see me okay? And are we ready to get started?
All good, Laurie.
Fabulous. Thanks, Mark. Awesome. Okay, we will kick off. So first, let me say Warami, which is Darug language for hello. And I'm come to you from Darug country today, and I wish to pay my respects to all elders past, present and future. They have cared and adored for the lands of which we work in partnership with them today to help encourage interpretation of what they represent our communities. And this is a big part of this project. May I introduce a few people? So I'm Laurie Mode. I am the Managing Director of a company called Laurie Management, and also the General Manager of Visitor Economy Development. And that is the company that's helping Milprinka Heritage and Tourism Association in project managing Sturts Steps. And Ruth is on the line, who is the brains behind this project, and I'll introduce her very soon, and she will take us through some of the background on Sturts Steps. But also have Mark, as you heard. So Mark is my partner in crime when it comes to project managing Sturts Steps, and he represents Public Works of Advisory, which is government department, which is helping us look at all the procurement areas and also make sure we're spending the government's money in the right way. So thank you guys for attending, and thank you again for everyone who's here today. The agenda is pretty succinct. We're going to be looking at the background of Sturts Steps. We'll look at the funding process that we went through and an update, which I'm sure you're all dying to find out on where we're up to with the project. We'll have a short Q&A, and then we'll go into the tourism industry, a little bit of insight into understand the tourism industry a little bit more, the objectives of Sturts Steps and where that sits with tourism, and then what is the product and services that are in region, what is their role in this process and in this project. And we're going to touch a little bit on marketing, because we're in a world where it is quite consumed in the digital way, and I've got a few hints and tips for everyone to take away from today. And we'll have Q&A as well. So first of all, let me ask you a few questions. Can I just quickly get you to answer 2 quick queries for me? The first one is, how are you feeling today? Are you fabulous? Are you any better? You'd be twins. Are you okay? It's too late for coffee now, so I'm waiting for wine. Are you drained? It must be the end of term. Or are you lucky to have me on this call? So are we lucky to have you? You really don't want to be here, but we're lucky to have you. So if you wouldn't mind just telling me a few things in there. And also then, what are you hoping to get away from today's session, which is really important for me to make sure I tick the boxes that you're looking for. So is it just more information? How can your business benefit? No idea. I was told to come. Wanted to check out who else came. And, oh, this is about tourism. Sorry, I'm in the wrong meeting. So if you wouldn't mind just jotting down there, get a bit of a feel for who's online and how we're actually feeling. And I'm so pleased to say that there's so many people that are feeling good, but also waiting for wine, which is a great sign for a Wednesday. Anyway, good to see that most of you are looking for more information. That's great, and good, some ideas where the business can benefit. So that's really, really great. I think that's pretty much, I've got 25, there's about a few more. If you haven't jotted in there how you feel or what you're looking for, please do so. It's coming up. I want to know who the two are that really, I'm lucky to have you on the call. It's anonymous if you didn't realise. Okay, that's great. So we've got an end of poll there, and thank you for contributing. We'll have a few more polls during the session, but here's your results so you can see for yourself. There's a few people in there that are waiting for that wine, so but really good to see that we're across the board in feeling good and not so bad. Information, definitely, and that's what you'll hopefully get today. So without any more delay, let's get into it then. So Ruth, can I ask you, let me see if I can unmute you for you. There you go, that should work. And I'm going to introduce Ruth to give us a bit of background on how this started. What was the idea behind this back before even a grant was on the table? Ruth?
Can you hear me?
I can.
I logged out for a moment.
That's all right, you go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Laurie, and thank you everyone for joining in today. I think this is for all of our corner country, particularly unincorporated area, this is quite a remarkable project to be involved in. I have to say the inspiration for the project came after a meeting or during a meeting in Milparinka probably 12, 15 years ago, where we had representatives of national parks, of Fowler's Gap Research Station, myself, and a representative of Tibooburra Tourism. And we were talking about all the things that sets the corner country apart from the rest. And Sturts Steps was mentioned, the fact that through this entire area, as much as there have been, and Sturt was active obviously in many other areas across Australia, particularly Eastern Australia, it was in this area that I guess he was held captured, if you like, for good 6 months. The entire expedition took 14 months. And so the inspiration for this touring route began there. And it wasn't until probably a couple of years later that we sort of mapped it out in an informal route, which was gradually accepted by New South Wales Tourism, and it started to be talked about. But when the opportunity came up for this level of funding, and I had no idea how we were going to actually facilitate this, I called on Laurie, and between the two of us and a whole lot of late nights and the odd wine or two, we came up with the concept, and brought in other partners as well, the national parks, wild deserts, West Darling Arts, you name it, those who are involved in the project. And we were very fortunate to be successful in that application. And I have to say we're very fortunate to have Laurie and Mark as our project managers, because there's no way that this could be done on a local level. So that's the beginning of it, and what we hope to deliver are real tourist attractions for people to our district, with extensions to other districts, of course, and that over time it will mean that more people will stay longer and spend more money in all of our communities, and just help us all be more sustainable for the longer term. So back to you. Thanks, Laurie.
Great, thank you so much, Ruth, and don't underestimate yourself. You could have done this. There's no doubt about you. You've got
no.
amazing skills there, but it's great to be part of it, and thank you for giving us that bit of background. I think it was essential. Before we jump into the next section, which a bit of background on myself, and I think it's so pleasing to see some of the people that I know from back in a few careers ago online. So you might remember me. I used to be the CEO of Outback New South Wales Tourism some years ago. So been in the tourism and economic development space for quite a while. And I've got to say, when Ruth rang me, I could not not join as quickly as I did, because my love for Outback and for regional areas of New South Wales is certainly paramount. And so yeah, I was pleased to jump on. And if you might remember, there was this little project called the Darling River Run, which was something that was a brainchild of someone else, but I certainly had the amazing opportunity to win a grant for that project. And we instigated that back in 2007, and it's so pleasing to see that it's still really bringing visitors to the area and thriving, and through the leadership of Joe, I can see Joe on the line here, is definitely still going, and it's a proud moment of mine to watch what's happening in that space. So let's hope Sturts Steps is exactly the same. So let me take you to the moment we actually had that meeting with Ruth and said, let's apply for this fund. It's the Restart New South Wales Fund. It's brought to you by Infrastructure New South Wales, which is a government department. We submitted the application, would you believe, in January 2019, and we're asked for more content and a full business case, which was submitted in April 2019. So this has been happening for a little while. We had a bit of an indication in September that we could have been successful, and then we started negotiating on different elements. And I will cover off some of those elements as we go through that we needed to bring out. But one in particular was, being an infrastructure grant, marketing activities could not be included. So we had to do a bit of a rejig on some of the content for the grant. Then we had fires, then we had flood, and then we had COVID. So all of that in line of Treasury certainly got put before any deed for a grant was to be signed. So it was unfortunate delay, but it is what it is. And we got the deed signed on the 24th of April this year. So that made us hit the ground running as quickly as we can and get all things together. But one thing I will concentrate on today is this project is really about the sum of all parts. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go. So quickly, hopefully not too much of a death by PowerPoint today, but we'll see how we go. Provide an environmental tourism experience platform, which really sets the Outback away from others and provides a unique experience, is really one of the aims we have. Also to provide a base of engaging experiences that enhance the visit that can be had to the Outback area. And keep open the opportunity for this base to be added to. And I'm so pleased to see so many of you here from Wentworth, and thank you to the guys from Wentworth for really promoting this, because there is a great opportunity where we've got a feeder area that is connected to Sturt as well that could capitalise on this. And there's no end to the possibility of all other districts taking on this opportunity and creating a bigger touring route over time. The objectives are pretty simple. It's to provide infrastructure that interprets the history of the area to visitors, and also that increases amenity for visitors. So things that we haven't got in place out in the Outback. To link the experiences in an easy to navigate touring route. Thus, it's easier for visitors to take hold and say, we want to do this experience. To minimise driver fatigue by travellers, giving them more reasons to stop and stay longer in the district was certainly an objective as well. And the most important, which is why we're all here today, is to join stakeholders in their experience offerings so that you all can benefit from this touring project. So if you haven't seen this map before, it's certainly a one that's been used quite a bit in the interpretation of Sturt and the expedition to the inland sea. And it's showing the route that Sturt and his expedition took. So what we're trying to do with this is to literally use this as a trigger and go as close to the journey that he took on the expedition. So tourists can actually retrace some of that history. Here is exactly what the touring route is and what we will be promoting or creating. And if you look at it in retrospect to the kilometres from Broken Hill to Sydney, that's 1,125 kilometres between Sydney and Broken Hill. This route is an 1,100 kilometre journey, a round trip. You can come in from Queensland, you can come in from South Australia, you can come in from Victoria, you can come from Broken Hill via Sydney, or even Bourke, you can come in from that way as well. So you have a circular touring route that can be entered in from all different directions. Around 70% is dirt, and actually it's probably a little bit less than that now with the ceiling to Tibooburra, but roughly around that. And landscapes are constantly changing through this whole area. And if you haven't been out there yourselves, I really encourage you to do so. I was incredibly shocked at the geology of this area and how it can change so dramatically in colour from white to reds to browns, and amazing the landscapes that can change so dramatically. Lots of history, lots of current stories that we can interpret. But really what we're trying to say to tourists is come out because we have the open space. You can relax out here and you'll get a real feel for the history and the outback way of life. But what we're doing is doing more about all the different elements of what we can interpret and not just about Sturt and the European heritage. So we'll be looking at our Indigenous interpretation. We'll be looking at some astronomy in this as well, and how that impacts the history of time. European, of course, but also the geology. As I say, the changes in landscape are all part of the different geology that exists out there. And the local landscape, the flora, the fauna, the wild dog fence, of course, and what that stands for and what it does for the agriculture in the area. And outback living, you know, how is every day, how do people move about? How do they live? How do they get their supplies? All of these things that people would love to know when they come from city areas and areas that are different to what the outback provides. This is a quote in the business case that we write, and it says, whilst following the journey that Sturts exhibition took, approximately now 192 to 193 years ago, you'll be connected with so much more. Through writing, visual, audible and kinesthetic experiences, visitors will engage in the songlines of Aboriginal tribes, the stories of hardship and success of life in the outback, the growth and demise of towns over the years through drought and flood, and wonderful experiences that can be had here today. Our audiences will walk away connected to a real Australia, be humble, knowledgeable, and ready to tell others to come because of the magnificent people they met along the way. And really that surmises the whole of the Sturts Steps project. Here are the elements, and I mentioned before about the sum of all parts, and this is where it starts. So we have signage directing people in and around the 1,100 kilometres. We'll have interpretation centres which will give depth to all the different heritage that we talked about, whether it be the geology or the European settlement or our Aboriginal tribal customs. Then we'll go into Milparinka, and what we're doing there is our post office, which is unfortunately degraded over time. What can we do with that building to interpret that for visitors and make it stable so that people can actually go in and out of that building? We'll look at how we interpret that heritage town and what we can provide for visitor amenity, and also the beautiful waterhole, which I'll be showing you some photos on just soon. Camp kitchens, you know, this is a great amenity for our travelling public coming through, and we're looking at updating Tibooburra and also creating one in Milparinka. Sturts Can, an amazing, amazing heritage icon of the area. We have, again, over time, it's been degraded through our friendly goats and also the weather and erosion, and we need to stabilise that so that we can provide that opportunity for people to come and visit well into the future. Fort Grey, we're going to be looking at what's going on out there, and it was just so great to see the bilbies and the bandicoots released just recently, and we're going to tell those stories and tell visitors about what the most amazing project is, and there'll be some art in there as well. Again, I'll go into that a little bit further in a little while. The sculpture trail, there'll be 4 additional sculptures put along the trail to interpret each of those different areas in an artistic way. And then the final one there is the digital application, which ties everything together. And as we all know, people love digital these days. We're moving in a digital world. devices are more than plenty, and we need to give people an experience that is more than just written and visual. And this is where the kinesthetic comes in. So we'll go into that a little bit further. So what does the grant include? Well, it includes all of this. So welcome signs to Millprink is probably the only silhouette sign that we haven't got in the region yet, and that'll be part of this project. We've got 116 wayfinding signs which will navigate people around the 1100 Ks. We've got some interpretation shelters, the museums, the camp kitchens that I mentioned, an astronomy park, a self-guided astronomy park. As I mentioned, the 4 art installations and 2 native animal sculptures which will represent the bilby and the bandicoot. We've got a walkway that's going to help people navigate up to Sturts Cairn, and we've got the stabilisation of the cairn to make sure it doesn't fall away any further. And then we have Wi-Fi zones, which will give people the ability to have the digital tour guide platform, which will give that, again, kinesthetic and an opportunity for people to engage a lot more in this history in a real moment. Refurbishment and stabilisation of the post office, which I mentioned, and B&B accommodation is what we're looking at to put into that town as well, and the refurbishment of the waterhole of Evelyn Creek. So again, sum of all parts. So let me tell you where we're up to. Road directional signage. There's a lot of work that's been going into this side of it, and Mark, I think, knows the map and the area but like the back of his hand now. He has gone out and literally recorded all the GPS locations for every one of those 116 signs. So an epic activity that he had to undertake. And then we mapped them onto a map, and each one had a corresponding picture of what that road sign was going to look like and the actual address of where that sign was going to go. So as I say, 116 signs, all ready to what we need. We've got the artistic impression proposed, which you can see is the brown and white. And we've gone with the brown and white for obvious reasons, that we're attracting tourists, and the brown and white signs, tourist attraction signs. I've got an asterisk there because we still have to get that approved. We haven't gone down that path yet. We're about to do that. And what happens is we've got to actually go to a organisation called TASAC, which is the Tourism Attraction Signposting Committee, and they are the ones that approve that we can proceed with a brown and white sign. So all approvals are done except for one location, which we're sorting out at the moment. And we're also compiling the application to go through the TASAC. So all things going well, hopefully we'll start the tender process soon so that we can have these signs installed in the first half of 2021. So the second area that I can give you an update on is the interpretation shelters. So we identified the sites of where these could go, and these are to interpret all the content in a visual form and a written form that people can engage in on that site. So it is very pertinent that we get the right information for the right site onto these interpretation shelters, using a similar design to what we had on the Darling Run, with a little bit of stylising to make sure it fits in with the landscape, and also gives a recognisable amenity so that people can stop along the journey. We went out to community consultation in June, and the clear winner out of all the concepts was the curved design. So now again, we've got all the approvals for the locations, all bar one site, and again, we're just in negotiations with that one as we speak. The next step, we'll get the engineering specs, and the construction of these will be next, while the interpretation will be finalised for each site. And as that's being done, community consult will be happening on that interpretation to make sure we haven't missed anything, haven't got anything wrong, or we need to add anything. So that is a big stage of this. And you can see on the left there is things called what we've called totems. So they are small pieces of information that will be put onto these. And that's like Eliza Kennedy's grave, which you can see there. So that site in particular is purely about that grave site and Eliza Kennedy. So we can put enough information on a totem that stands out and is recognisable, and we don't have to have a big shelter for that particular site. But you can see the artist's impression, and actually a great idea, not yet approved, but certainly one that we're looking at to get some silhouettes into that, that area as well, to give more option for public to engage in feeling what it was like back in the day. The next one's the art installations, and this one is progressing well. West Darling Arts are our partner in 4 of the locations. That's Yanco, Glen, Paxsaddle, Millprinka and Tibooburra. They are going to be liaising with each of those towns and the community within there to bring to life stories through art. So the big key objective here is Joe, who is a project manager employed by West Darling Arts, will be working with each of the towns to do exactly that. And then they'll be working with the artists to recreate that story in a visual and meaningful way. The Wild Deserts at Fort Grey have got 2 animal sculptures which will be made out of the leftover wire from a previous project, and you can see that in the image there. And thanks to the Coonamble Times last week, we got a bit of airtime, so to speak, with Brian's start on his one. So Brian's doing the Bandicoot and we've got Ivan doing the Bilby, and you can see the concept designs there and what they're going to possibly look like. They're going to be a little bit bigger than those ones you can see there, but even still in wire. And I think that Bilby there looks around about 2.5 meters high, if I can read that one. The can. Okay, so as you can see on that image on the left, unfortunately, it's slipping away a little bit down the hill, and we're working with National Parks on this one to make sure we stabilise it as quickly as we can, but also with the right process and the right structural area. So that is a project that's they're working with the heritage engineer to come up with some concepts, and they're being presented as we speak. The other part of this side of it is a walkway to the can. So if you've actually done the walk yourself, you'll remember that it's quite difficult underfoot, quite unstable, and it is quite steep. I know for myself, I got to a stage, I thought, yep, I'm there, and I looked up and I went, no, I've still got more to go. So it's just providing a little bit more of an easier amenity for tourists that want to actually get to the top and see the magnificent view from the Sturts Cairn. And the waterhole. So we're actually progressed quite well in this area. The siltation has been removed. So that top right image there, you can see a lot of the silt that's been built up over the year, but the waterhole to the right of it, that's been removed, as has a lot of the rubbish that have been dumped over many, many years. It's now ready for landscaping, but we're now awaiting the master plan before any further works are being done in that space. So the next steps, where we're up to. So we'll complete all the steps of the elements we just spoke of. RDA will be working with the communities and the artists on each of the locations to interpret the stories. And then the planner, who is Barnstroms, have just been contracted to look at the master plan for Millprinka that I just mentioned. Also design the camp kitchens for Millprinka and the improvements for the Tibooburra camp kitchen. Assess the stabilisation of the post office and see what we need to do there to keep it as a repurpose item. And then commence assessment on the types of buildings required for our 3 museums that we're going to be putting into the 3 locations. We'll be working on approval for the site of our preferred site for the astronomy park. And then once all the interpretation is complete, we'll start commencing on the digital component of the project. That will be the last element that we'll be looking at as part of this project. And then we'll finalise the landscaping of all the construction sites after everything's in place. So I have another quick poll for you. And let me get rid of that one. And I'm just trying to, no, I don't want to do that one. I can't actually get it up. Let me get rid of that one. It doesn't like me. That's okay, we won't worry. I'll actually ask you via the chat. Have anyone got any questions regarding anything that we've spoken about already? Someone's unmuted themselves. Did you want to ask a question? No? Okay. No worries. And there is a question there. Will we provide the PowerPoint? Absolutely, we certainly can. It is a very large file, so we'll provide a link to the website where we'll put it up there and you can download it from the website. So not a problem at all. Now we might continue on if no one's got any questions. So now we're going to get into the real depth of what tourism is about. And this is a very old slide of mine, but I thought it was really important to put it up and show that the relationship between the travellers and the local town, what they spend their money on, is really important for the ongoing employment, sales within the township itself. So they're not only just paying for fuel in their automobile, I love automobile, their car, or they're paying for accommodation, or they're paying for souvenirs. What actually is, when they pay for those, it's going to all the other services that residents of that area who are employed in tourism can pay for as well. So it's very known that in tourism we have a multiplier effect of sometimes up to 8 times. So the money that comes into a town in tourism can certainly replicate 8 times into that local community. Here's an idea of how it can work. And I've used Wentworth because of so many of the Wentworth people on the line today. But here's a rough example of a small wedding, an 80-person wedding. And if they're coming to the town, not normal residents of this town, this could be the value of tourism for that particular area of tourism. So the cost of a wedding ceremony could be around $20,000 depending on the venue. And then you've got accommodation for bridal family, all the purchases that they come in early for. The bridal family normally come in a couple of days prior. Then you have your guests, and they're not only just coming to the wedding, they're possibly, a few of them are staying overnight. So here I've estimated about 20 of them staying overnight, and the bridal party staying overnight. Again, purchases in shops, whether it be snacks and food or fuel. And then the actual servicing parties to that wedding. So it's your local hair providers, hairdressers, makeup, cars, flowers, etc. All adding to what is in Wentworth itself. So you can see that that's around about $57,000 that's going directly into that area because of this one event. Another option is the 4-wheel drive group. So maybe 10 people that go on a 10-day trip. And this actually happened. I spoke to a 4-wheel drive club just recently on the project. And 5 cars went out and did a 10-day trip. They did half in motels or hotels and then half camping. So I quickly did the sums on this. And before the trip, some of them did some adjustments to their car or bought a fridge for the car. We estimated around about $5,000 into the place where they came from for this trip. And then during the trip, they went to supermarkets, they went to restaurants, they ate at the pubs. They spent 5 nights in accommodation, and that was 5 rooms, and then 5 nights at camping sites. They spent roughly around $400 on fuel per group, and obviously souvenirs and other purchases that they made along the way. Now that's a very conservative figure, but that's $18,875 that just went into that trip alone. Now think about it, if they had a great experience and they started putting snaps up on Facebook or whatever of their journey, went back to their 4-wheel drive club and told everyone about that journey, the potential of more people coming and doing the same sort of experience is a lot higher. So where do we sit with our economic value of tourism in the outback right now? And needless to say that it has dropped a little bit. This is the March stats, which is unfortunate. And the March stats probably don't take the effect of COVID because our lockdown really didn't start till the 23rd of March in New South Wales. So it has fallen a little bit on the year before data, but it's still a significant chunk of money. We're looking at $366 million worth is what tourism is worth to the outback area as identified there by Destination New South Wales. The average length of stay is 2 nights. Now we've got to get that up because that is actually quite low. This is the domestic value is 316.5. So that shows you how domestic orientated travel to the outback is. And of that, 41% are on holiday and 32% are on business. So whether that be majority into Broken Hill potentially for business, but also people that are visiting stations for business outside of town as well. Now, here's an interesting fact that if you look at your age demographic of what is coming to the outback region, 60 to 69 years of age makes up your highest demographic, and that's 21%. 50 to 59 years of age is 18%, and literally it's air between everyone else right now, quite spread across the other age groups. So they're your two key demographic areas. And 47% of all travellers came from regional New South Wales. Interestingly enough, 61% also came from interstate. Now, I'm not too sure about how we got over 100% on that, but I'm going off the data that I saw. So we might have to ask, actually, I think Serena's on the line. Serena, we might have to talk to you about that one. But of that, only 10,000 were international visitors to the area. So we know there's a bit of work to do in the international space. But what I've got to say to you today, obviously, we can't worry about that right now with our borders being locked down, but domestic is key. And we'll talk about the effects of COVID in a second. The Murray, because I've got a lot of Wentworth people on the line, I thought I'd share with you the Murray stats as well. And you can see the Murray area gets a lot more than Outback, and they do have a higher length of stay as 2.8. They have a higher economic worth at this point in time. And you can see here the very big difference with where their business, or sorry, the purpose of travel is their visiting friends and relatives market. In Outback, it's very low, like in the 1 percentile, whereas in the Murray area, it's quite a high visiting friends and relatives market. And that is also reflected in its international visitation, because I'm sure the people from Wentworth can attest to the migration that's in that area as well. With, I think there's a lot of Greeks and a lot of Italians from what I remember, but correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But yeah, that gives you a bit of a base to have a visiting friends and relatives market. The other interesting thing here is your other demographic for the Murray, which is 15 to 29 years of age. That is actually quite high. You still got the highest demographic coming to your area is the same as the Outback, the 60 to 69s. But yeah, really surprising to see those Y-gens pop in there. Which gives you even more reason to listen when I get to the digital component. So remainder of the segments is really spread out, and needless to say, because of your location, you're getting quite a substantial amount from Victoria. And you can see those links down the bottom there. Again, when you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to click on them and see those full reports on that data. So let's talk COVID. At any one time in this year, it would normally have 250,000 Sydney people overseas. That's from actually the MVS data for people going overseas. So there is a bit of a captured market there that we need to tap into, and no doubt already have. From what I hear, the stats are looking fabulous out there. But here is some of the opportunities that COVID has presented us. McCrindle did some excellent research on what are the lessons that we've had from COVID. What have we experienced that we intend to continue now that we've experienced that because of COVID? And certainly the ones that really jump out for me that we need to think about when we're talking about tourism to the Outback is spending more time with family, which is one of the top ones. Enjoying a slower pace of life. So getting out to the countryside and driving, a fabulous opportunity to tick that one off, and spending more time in nature. So as I think Winston Churchill put it beautifully, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So let's use this to our advantage and really make sure that we're talking to exactly that terminology when you're promoting what you do or your service or your product, tapping into those markets that are saying exactly those things. So the project goals as they stand, and this is what's submitted to Infrastructure New South Wales to get the access to this grant. So it was totally modelled on getting another 70,000 visitors to the area each year. That's 40% of visitors to Broken Hill. Currently, well, pre-COVID, we were looking at around about 5 to 8% of all the visitors to Broken Hill coming through Corner Country. So that's a massive jump, but we believe by providing the amenity and the infrastructure that we are, that we'll certainly have an opportunity to get to that mark. Our length of stay in Corner Country is a lot less than Outback as a total. And as you remember, Outback was 2 nights. Corner Country is 1.5. So we need to jump that, and we need to jump Outback as a whole, and we're aiming to get it to 2.8 nights. That means significant investment into that local economy, because your daily spend at $93, if you're increasing that by another 1.3 nights, that's another chunk of money that can go into that local economy. But not only that, we want to increase the daily spend by keeping them there and also giving them other opportunities to engage with the local community. So, sum of all parts again. The product, the touring route itself, is the sum of all the elements that I've spoken about. So the museums, the signage, the art, everything that we have, all the elements that we are providing is the sum of what will make this work. The experience itself will be a sum of all the elements plus the products that all of you offer, the businesses, the organisations in towns, the station stays, the national parks. Everything that is offered in that area becomes the experience. But the promotion is also the sum of all the parts. And the efforts that go through marketing with Sarita's team at Destination New South Wales, where they're doing state campaigns or they're getting journalists to a particular area, is really crucial for us to take advantage of that and being part of this project, as well as the region and the work that Lucy's doing with Destination Country and Outback. And then the Shires, so what's Broken Hill doing in their promotion? What's Central Darling Shire doing in their promotion, and how can we ride on the back of that? And then the towns, how can Milparinka jump in? How can Tibooburra jump in? How can Packsaddle jump in? So, and then all the businesses, so yourselves, if you're doing any marketing, it needs to have the same sort of messages so we can flow through to a consumer and show that we are working together. So let me give you an example of this. Business A, let's say they're a station stay, for example. They have a logo and a brand. Awesome. They produce a brochure which sort of indicates what they have on offer, how many rooms, what are the services they provide. They produce a website which gives a little bit more depth to the content of the brochure. They're active on social media, probably not all channels, but active on some. They advertise into the market that they think is going to be best for them. They have a phone number so they can get inquiries, and they invite media to write about their business. So if there's a media person that's in the publication they advertise in, come out and supplement my ad with some public relation material or editorial. But here's where business B can take advantage of the sum of all parts. So they also have a logo or brand, but they're not scared to use it in conjunction with any destinational branding. Tie it with where they are or what the experience is around them. They produce a brochure, but using identity from some of the larger opportunities like a touring route, like a region, and they attract visitors to the region. It certainly supports what content they have in there. Produce a website, but they link to key experiences in the region. They give people all the reasons why they've got to come to that area and then to their business. And then they ask those same people to link back to them. Include content on the experiences that are going to get people really understanding what it is that they can do in the area. And probably the most important aspect of this new world is that they've got to book online. We've got to give the ability for them to book online instantly for a very quick conversion. People want it now, they want it available for them. And even if you don't want to accept straight away, give them the option to at least correspond with you straight away as they're thinking about that conversion, or if they can't, you're going to lose them. We'll go into a little bit more of that later. Active on social media, that's great, but here's where Business B does it better. They like and engage in content that promotes the region as a whole and the destination that the business can be linked to, but they're also involved in conversation. Advertising to their market publications, that's fine, but Business B works with other operators to spread the cost potentially when advertising and collectively works together in a packaging way and using identity and imagery that for regional content, and it's also recognisable to the market of what they're actually going to be experiencing. Business B has a phone number like Business A, but what they're doing is empowering others to provide information on their behalf, whether it be visitor centres, other businesses in town, by giving them content and access to your product and lead them to a user-friendly website to navigate for those inquiries or bookings. And then inviting media to write about the business. Business B works with the region as a whole to do this and works with destinations to give a full touring experience. I hope that makes sense, and please put up any questions in the chat if you want to ask me anything as we go. But let me say congratulations. By all of you being here today, you've recognised that you are part of this opportunity that Sturts Steps is providing you, and being part of the experience, whether it's to the area, from the area, or in the area. I'm handing over to you, Ruth, Mark and I are handing you these elements to use. We're giving you imagery, we're giving you logos, we'll give you access to opportunities on the website to make use of for your own product, your own area, your own promotion. And collectively, this will give the power that we need behind promoting Outback as a whole. So now's the time to get ready to make the most of this experience by your product. So marketing is not just advertising, and it's not just a website, and it's not just social media. I'm sure you're all aware that marketing is actually matching a product or service to a need of a consumer. So if I take back the text version of marketing, again, it's the sum of all parts. We first have the most essential ingredient in marketing. Do you have the right product to answer the need of that consumer? Do you have what they are looking for, whether it be accommodation, food, information provision? What does the consumer want? And then match it to the product that you're offering. So that's the first rule in marketing. Product is the most important. The second is price, but in the tourism world, we call it packaging, because what people are looking for is value for money, and you cannot assess value for money unless you understand what it is that you're going to experience. It's not just a night in a bed. They can get that anywhere. It's a night in a bed to visit an area and experience something new. So what is that package you offer? Articulate that package and set your price according to the need of what they are looking for or what you offer. The third is process. And this is going back to that comment I made about booking online. Process is really key today. I think you can all imagine yourself that in the world that we live in, we want things, and when we want them now. Online sales, access to Google. If we don't know a question, what do? We Google it. So we're actually wanting things a lot quicker, a lot faster, a lot more access to us today. And that goes with your process. And what do you need to put in place to make sure you're listening to that customer need? Can they get the information they want? Can they get it quickly? Can they understand if you can cater for their needs quickly? Can they convert to your business quickly? And can they come and stay? And what is the process beyond that? Okay, so how else can they find out about all the other things in town? Is that a part of your process as well, or in the region? Place. Now, place is the one in the textbook for marketing, but in tourism we call it distribution. And that means that there's other people that are selling your product for you. It could be travel agents, it could be inbound tour operators, it could be wholesalers, it could be stays.com.au. All of those types of people are distributors of tourism product. So where you put them shows that you are attracting a certain market, but you're also increasing your distribution and range. But again, focusing in on the market that you're trying to attract. The next one's people. And that comes across in the customer service that people get, whether they're inquiring or whether they're staying. But in tourism, it's a lot about the partnerships. And this is one example of partnerships and how to maximize your marketing as a business. If you're involved in Sturts Steps and you see the opportunities that we provide, jumping on that is part of marketing. Who else can you partner with? Who else is in your local area? Who else is promoting you? A great example is the visitor information centres, whether they be Wentworth, Broken Hill, Menindee, etc. They're all promoting people all the time. So what are the partnerships you can develop there to help promote your business further? Physical evidence, or in tourism we call it personal experience. So this comes down not to just the customer service, but what is the experience that you're offering? And also don't forget it's post-event as well. The personal experience that often people get post-event really solidify what sort of marketability you have in word of mouth and also return visitation. So all in whole, personal experience is really key. The last one, which everyone thinks is the only thing to do with marketing, is promotion. And we know that there's many ways we can promote. We talked about business A and we talked about business B, and all of them looked at all the different areas of promotion. We talked about websites, we talked about brochures. So keep in mind, there's a lot to that. But the secret ingredient to anything to do with all of those P's is to know your market. And we talked about the demographics, the 60 to 69, which seems to be for both areas. It's not just the age. Are they couples? Are they families? Are they single? Are they in groups? What are they coming for? What are their needs when they come to the area? What are they trying to seek out? Why are they coming to the Outback? Or why should we get them to the Outback? So knowing your market is essential to anything you do in tourism. To set up organisations to thrive in the current market, it is more important than ever to gain insights into today's consumer, and that's by McCrindle himself. And if you want some access to some amazing data, Mark McCrindle has done some excellent work in demographics and the changes over the years of what these demographics are looking for, what their changing consumer habits are, and all of that is very key to what you provide for these markets. Here's a great example, and if you've seen this shot, I'm sure you've seen it on social media or websites, but you know, this is a great showing of the age and what we're seeing now. People standing there at, I think that is the cathedral, I think it is where the Pope was visible, and yes, the difference between what was only 12 years, you've got everyone with a device and capturing that experience with a device, as opposed to 2005 where they're taking it internally and personally. So what that says about what we take away from these events is one thing, but we certainly can see the increase in devices is pertinent to what we've got to look at. And that comes down to online. Online really matters, and that goes for every single business, every single product, every single service that is on offer when it comes to tourism. Your online presence is really, really important because everyone is searching. As I said before, if you've got a question, you Google it. And not only will we be doing it via typing soon, you'll see an integration where people will be doing it via voice. And I'm sure some of you have got Google Homes, but certainly this is the age that we're getting into where people will just literally ask the question, whether it be Siri or Google. They'll be asking questions and getting responses. So do you know what your online presence is? I quickly did a map search on 2 locations. The top one, Tibooburra, the second one, Broken Hill. Now this is just Google Maps, nothing special. And the only businesses that came up when I did that search were the ones you see there. So you got to make sure you're visible in this area. This is a free tool. You can actually put yourself into Google Maps so that when people just do a rough search to say, oh, I'm thinking of going out there, what's there? You're showing up. So this is a really easy thing to do. Google accounts, set it up. Nominate your business, where it's located, verify it, and like Vicky's done there with the corner country store, I think that is, yeah, it's Vicky. Yeah, she's done a great job in putting that on the mark. So when someone searches Tibooburra, they know they can get their items from a store. So that's a great start. Historic Daydream, mine the same. So this is a really simple thing that you can all do if you haven't already done so. Now, if you want to understand what's going on in your business, your town, your region, as we said before, we Google it. Now, this is just a Milparinka search on news, what's actually happening. Now, this is flawed for a couple of reasons. One, Google remembers me, and they remember the things that I've clicked on in the past. They try to preempt what I want, and by doing a pure Google search, it's not as accurate as a visitor doing a Google search. But there is a way that you can get an understanding of what your online reputation or what is being talked about your town, your region, your product, your business, you, very simply. And that goes back to your Google account. And it's setting up a thing called Google Alerts. Now, if you go into Google Alerts, you can type anything in. You could type in Lorry Mode. You could type in Loric Management as my business. I could type in the Sydney where I'm located. Anything I want to know what's being discussed online about those items. So for this example, I put in Milparinka, and I can set an alert to come to me direct into my inbox once a day, once a week, once a month, whenever I really want it. Careful if you set it for once a day. You might be a bit inundated. But either way, you're getting to know what's being said about that town. So already you can start saying, okay, I had no idea this website was even promoting Milparinka. I had no idea that someone had a really bad experience. So you're starting to drill into some of the content that is happening without your knowledge. So it's a really, really powerful tool, and I really recommend everyone to jump onto Google Alerts and, as I say, put in your business, your name, your location. You can even keep an eye on Sturts Steps if you wanted to. So that way you can just quickly, it's a couple of minutes every week, just see what is being said. Here's another really powerful tool, and I'm sure you're all aware of this one. TripAdvisor is certainly one of the biggest things that's searched when people are thinking about tourism. So what is on here? What is being represented? And making sure that your business, regardless of if you're an accommodation, which is the traditional tourism business, or if you're a petrol station, you are on here. You've got to make sure you're visible so that people can understand the holistic experience that they're going to get when they go to that area. And also so you can maximize your return. But also keep an eye on TripAdvisor, because this is really where social happens. This is social media. And the power behind social media is the chatter about the product, the recommendations, and the empowering of someone to make comment is really what social is all about. So the key for any business is to watch and listen on that chatter and make sure they can interject where they need to control or to hear what people are being said about the area or the business. Hints and tips. So online we have Sarita. I don't know if you want to put your hand up there, Sarita, or just say good day.
Hello.
Hello. Fabulous for you to join us. So Sarita is from Destination New South Wales, and Destination New South Wales do some amazing things regarding tools for businesses, and her team and some of her colleagues connect you with opportunities like what we're doing today on ways that the business can look at improving their access to tourists. They can look at marketing tips and hints. They can look at marketing campaigns. Just recently Sarita was great in connecting me with the PR team, and we just had an amazing journalist come out and do the whole trip to Corner Country, and we're really looking forward to seeing the articles that come out from that. So thank you, Sarita, for all you've been doing to date.
No problem. Fantastic news though that they came out. That's brilliant.
Yes, we managed to skip the rains, so that was awesome.
Fabulous.
Great, thank you. And the other thing that they've got is the ATDW, and I cannot speak enough highly of this program, only because of the distribution that it provides a small operator. So if you are not listed on Get Connected, which is the name for the New South Wales Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, I'm happy to put that in the chat for you. But I think it's really important that you spend that little bit of time connecting yourself to that, because it gives you access to australia.com. It gives you access to sydney.com. It gives you access to a multiple number of sites. And when I say multiple, it's tens of thousands now that actually subscribe into that database and pull data into their own websites. So by putting yourself in once and keeping it updated, you're probably being seen in up to 5,000 different websites if you're searched on. So it's a powerful, powerful tool. I can't recommend it enough. The other one is Destination Network. And I think, have I got Lucy there? Or have I got one of Lucy's colleagues? I can't find them. Anyway, Lucy is from the Destination Country and Outback Network. So she works with Destination New South Wales and represents the whole area, and very, very closely works with all the local governments on projects to look at development of tourism product. So they often have opportunities that come out. So if you're not already subscribed to their newsletter, definitely jump onto their website, Destination Country and Outback, and subscribe to their emails, and you'll be updated through them as well. And the other one, which is key, and we have, I know Patrick's an apology, which would have been great to have Patrick here from Broken Hill, but we do have the guys from Wentworth as well. And I think we've got Margot. Margot, are you there? I think she's on mute. I'm trying to unmute her. Anyway, Margot's from, there you go, Margot, you there?
Yes, Margot's here.
Lovely to have you, Margot. So Margot represents Central Darling Shire, and you work with Menindee and White Cliffs and Wilcannia on, definitely disseminating information. Is that correct?
Yes, I do my best to put all that out there. So it's been a big learning curve for me since I've been on the Darling River Run social media group. So it's interesting.
Oh, great. And thanks for coming along today.
Wouldn't miss it. I think it's a brilliant thing for this area, whole area.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And then the last one there with a hint and tip is your collaboration and your packaging. So exactly what we're talking about today is collaborating with all the people online, connecting the tourism product, giving an experience that is quite holistic, and promoting that to a visitor. You know, packaging is not always a price point. You know, a $6.99 trip to Fiji for 7 nights, all expenses. It is packaging what is the experience that people can have if they come to the Outback. And it's the terminology that triggers, like the ones that I showed you from the COVID research. It's about escaping the city. It's about connecting with nature, spending time with family. But what can you see and do? And that's the power of the packaging part. Okay, social media. Here we go. Can I get a bit of an idea who's on social media now, even if you just want to do a hand up, or there's some little emoticons that you've got access to there, or just put into the chat. Really keen to understand who is currently on social and which potential channels that you're on. But is it free? Of course, the platform is accessible to anyone. Unless you boost, it is free of cost. However, it costs your time, and it could cost a lot of your time and energy by being part of social, but that is no reason why you shouldn't look at it. Tip number 1 is to plan how much you spend on it. Set the time you want to spend on it, or it can consume you. So say, okay, for half an hour every day, I'm going to do Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And just check, find out what's going on, post a few things, and leave it as is. Otherwise, you could be on it very literally all day. So make sure you set the time limit that you spend on it. But tip number 2 is to make sure you're on the platforms that's suitable for your market. Don't worry about playing in spaces potentially like TikTok. However, Murray probably needs to look at TikTok on that demographic that we talked about before. But for Outback, you know, your demographic is not on TikTok. So don't waste too much time spending it in platforms that you know your market is not on. There is a lot of platforms out there, and they're growing. And, you know, what's going to be probably famous next year is probably not even on this list here. But there is a lot out there. And I think if I was to ask you which is the most used right now, I think you actually might be shocked on which one it is. Probably most of you are going to say Facebook. Would I be right? It's YouTube. Visual, visual, visuals. Video, video, video. Can I tell you, YouTube is the most used social media platform today by most demographics. So if you're not on there, you need to get on there. But again, look at your market, look at what they're looking for, and start thinking about how you can address their need through video. And videos are easy these days with our devices. So tip number 3. What is social media? Don't try to change the behavior of people on social media, because they're on there for entertainment reasons. They are there to socialize with people. They're there to just be literally entertained. So you cannot get on there and think you're going to change behavior. You need to be part of that behavior. So getting into groups and topics that suit your market is the best place to be, so you can be involved in conversation. It's all about the conversations. It's all about the relationships. So social media is a very different platform to even of your website, to anything that you would do on a marketing level or a cooperative level. It used to be about content. It used to all be about putting content up all the time, lots of content. It is no longer about that. It is now about context, putting it in a frame that's going to match that market, talking about where people already are. So if they're having conversations about something, that's where you need to be, and give context to how you can help with that. Does that make sense? I hope I'm getting a few nods and things in the background there. The thing to remember when you're doing social media is to ask yourself 2 questions. Why would they care about what I'm posting? Why would they share it? Okay, there's 2 different questions, and it's really important before you post anything to think about exactly that, because that will give you the level of engagement that you will get from that post, or the success from that post. So what takes the time? It's the watching and listening to understand the market, understand the conversations, and adding your context in. But the most important thing about all of this is being authentic. You've got to be real. Use people that are having the experience. Put yourself up there as the owner. Be authentic. I'm here. This is what I offer. That's what really triggers people and the response. So I don't know whether my poll's going to work because it seems to be jammed. Here we go. I've just figured it out. Okay, would you mind telling me which part of this project are you most excited about? Really keen to hear. Is it the road signage? Is it the interpretation of the outdoors, the sculptures, the shelters, the camp, the astronomy park? Is it the indoor opportunities, the museums and the post office refurb? Is it the public amenity? Is it the digital interp and the access en route using own devices? Love all of it. Or move on, I've had enough, wine's ready. Tell me which one suits your answer to this. Which are you most excited about? Oh, I'm loving you guys. You all love it all. This is great. Well, no one's had enough. That's a good sign. So I'm not sick of my own voice at the moment. Okay, I'm sick of my own voice. So there you go. You love it all, which is great to see. And thank you so much for taking part in that. Now I have a last and final one. I really want to understand before I launch into a non-recorded Q&A, which will give you freedom and access to ask me anything you want to. But did you find this session useful? Would you like to see more sessions like this to help progress the industry in the area? Is it yes and yes? Or is it yes as long as it's not 1 o'clock? Yes and no? No and yes, although I'm not sure why I want more if I didn't find it useful. No and no, but thanks anyway. I'm not sure. I'll come back to you after I've absorbed the death by PowerPoint. I'll give you a few more minutes, or a few more seconds, I should say, to just finish off that poll for me. I won't be offended, by the way, if you say no, please. I won't be offended at all. And just while you're doing that, I will be out in region at the beginning of November, and I'm hoping to run a few face-to-face sessions, similar but a little bit more depth to what we've covered today. So if you're interested, feel free to drop me a line. I think you've all got my email address now from the reminder that you got today. So feel free to get in touch if you're interested in attending any of those sessions. That's great. So everyone's really... I'll launch that up so you can see it. Okay, so yes, you found it useful, and yes, you'd like to see more of this type of session. That's really pleasing, and yep, I hear you, as long as it's not 1 o'clock, and 2 are going, yep, cool, I've got enough. So that's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that. What I will do, as I said, is I'll turn off the recording and I'll leave a total freedom of conversation open, and we can spend the rest of the time chatting about all the different elements that you want to know more about. So I'll stop now.